Thank you so much again, guys, for joining in. For the ones who will be streaming the session, thank you so much for joining. I hope you find this insightful. And for the attendees right now here, um, thank you so much for joining us. So I believe we can go to the next slide, Nisha. Yeah, just to start off, I'll introduce myself. My name's Meilani, or Lani for short. I'm currently a grad student at DePaul University in Chicago. Almost finished with my degree in experience design. I'm currently a grad assistant as well. So within the past years of educational path, I've had experiences in freelancing and had some design hackathon events. But for now, I've been a full-time grad student. Um, I've also been part of extracurriculars, such as being a former co-president of the Paul User Experience Association in my school, organizing events for fellow junior designers. So this is my second ADP list event, and part of me wanted to help propose this event that isn't too typical, but also relatable to be discussed with other mentees. And I hope this will be an insightful event for you guys. I've also co-hosted the design system event back in April, so you can check that in YouTube, ADP List YouTube channel. And I'm looking forward to co-hosting with Munija, so passing it over to you, Munija.
Thanks, Melanie, and my apologies for the technical difficulties at the start of the session. At least maybe that means it's out of the way. So again, sorry for that. And just thank you for that great start to our session, Melanie. So my name is Manija, and I'm a fellow ADP List ambassador. I have followed a non-linear path when it comes to my career, and after years of developing soft skills and constantly learning, I've landed in the world of UX design. So I attended a UX design bootcamp and subsequently was offered a role to assistant teacher future cohort. So throughout this journey, I've come to learn of the importance of mentorship, and that led me to ADP List. So this is my first session that I'm co-hosting, and we're hoping the session leaves all of you with inspiration, insight, and hope regarding the varying paths into product design. All right, so to get ourselves organized, I'm going to briefly go over our agenda for tonight. We'll introduce our amazing mentors who are the spotlight of today's session. Afterwards, we're going to kick things off with an interactive icebreaker, which will then lead us directly into the fireside chat style panel that we have prepared for you guys today. So questions posed today will range varying topics that will allow you to get to know these mentors, the what if questions they had in their career, how they chose their career path, their work-life balance, and their strategies to success. So the final portion of the session will be devoted to a live Q&A where our mentors will answer questions that have been submitted by the audience via our Mentimeter link that was posted in the event description, and we'll be posting it again later in the chat. So, and now cue the fanfare. We are immensely grateful for three wonderful mentors, these three established senior product designers who are elated to take time out of their day today to share their stories and their wisdom with us tonight. So the first mentor I'm happy to introduce is Wei Chen. Wei, we would love to hear you speak a few words about yourself. Take it away, Wei.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Cool. So I'm Wei, and thanks for inviting me to the group session today. So I have been a product designer for about 8 years. So throughout the 8 years, I have been working different kind of companies before, such as agency, startup, and a bigger corporation. And also I have worked with different kind of industry and a type of problem as well, from consumer product to enterprise product. And in the past few years, I'm mostly focusing on creating experience for small and medium business to improve their businesses. And outside design, I just like to explore new things. I have the Instagram. I'm taking the stuff people throw away on the street. So I think it's fun. I always get inspired on those trashes on the street. Yeah.
Love
That's
that. If
great.
you feel comfortable, I'd love to see your Instagram. You can link in the chat.
Oh yeah.
That sounds really interesting. All right. And our thank you, Wei, again. I'm pleased to introduce our next mentor with us today, which is Trixie Pama. Trixie, it would be great to hear from you as well.
For sure. Thanks for having me. This is my first group session here in ADP List, so I'm really excited to see how this one pans out. I am Trixie. I am a senior product designer. I've been in the industry for about 8 years now, just like Wei. I would say my career has been an iteration, one iteration after another, just like how you would do it in product design. So there are a bunch of learnings there, and I can't wait to dive a little bit deeper on all those things with you guys. I am actually in between two companies right now. So I just finished my tenure at Instacart as a senior product designer. And I am moving into more of a leadership position actually with MasterCard officially in a couple of weeks. So you're the first to know. um, what else can I say about myself? In terms of product design, I love diving really deep into meaty products or like meaty problem spaces. And so that involves a lot of the systems thinking and design strategy work that I have been doing. And yeah, I guess like off design, I am also a traveler. I love baking. I love singing. All of those things I'm pretty sure have made its way into my design practice in some form. And yeah, that's me.
Love that. I love how you said we're constantly iterating, like we are our own end product.
Yeah.
And all right. So thank you, Trixie. And our third mentor, Chris Sledge. Would love to hear a bit about yourself, Chris.
See and hear me okay? I'll look for thumbs or nods. I see thumbs. Awesome. So I wrote a block of text. What it says in a nutshell is that I'm a self-taught designer. I learned design by picking up and doing things, learning by doing, messing up, and picking up little nuggets along the way. I'm a very relationship-driven person. I care a lot about doing my own best work, helping others do their best work, whatever that means for them. That's ultimately why I am here on ADP List. Mentorship gives me a lot of enjoyment and fulfillment. When I'm not designing things, I'm a big gamer. My partner and I game all the time. I like building computers, smooching my dog on her cute face. That type of stuff.
Love that. I hope your dog makes a guest appearance today. All
He
right.
is
So thank
here.
you, mentors. Oh, she's there. All right. Thank you, mentors. We're really excited to hear what's in store today. All right. And Melanie?
Yep. Thank you, Minija. And for the first part, like part two of this session is basically a little icebreaker. We would just like to get to know a bit more about you all and also have you get to know the other attendees, whether you've talked with them before or you've seen them on LinkedIn or etc. Minija will set up the timer in a bit, and as she sets it up, please take a moment and scan the QR code attached so you can add your answers. We will time this icebreaker for about a minute and we will look over the answers for about 2 minutes. So, yep, we just started the timer. So, I'll also put the link if anyone is having some trouble scanning. So, here it is. I believe this is. There you go. So relating to job search and career journey in general, what seems to be your top challenge or challenges at the moment? Okay. So we'll wait a little bit for a few seconds before we go to that. There you go. We'll go to the next slide. And I think you can refresh it. It should show results. There you go. So these are the answers that we got, and we'll just read over some of them. So I've seen getting into a bigger company, creating an attractive portfolio. Yeah, that's usually pretty challenging to make a portfolio that is up to your satisfaction or up to other people's satisfaction. So that's really relatable. For here, what to specialize in, networking, empathy, applying for junior UX designer roles. Okay. What about you, Manija? Any interesting answers that you find?
Money's being a challenge stood out to me immediately, which is I get it. I'm there. Also, that's the goal, right?
Mhm. And I think I saw an answer about like top challenge is getting our first role. So
Oh yeah,
pretty
big.
difficult, especially when on bigger companies as well. There has been like a tip I've heard that you need to apply right away when it gets released, and later on it might be hard to be even noticed if you've applied to an application that has been released for a while. So definitely relatable. So
Absolutely.
yeah, anything else that stood out for you, Manija? Or the mentors, if anything stood out
Yeah.
for you?
I might just toss out there that imposter syndrome does not go away regardless of your level. It's something that everybody manages. So definitely don't feel weird about that. We all got it.
Yeah, I will +1 that with a big bold font. But also, I guess just one thing that one of my former managers actually told me about imposter syndrome is that when you have it, you know you're a high performer because only high performers are critical of themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good thought. I think I discovered the term imposter syndrome when I entered college because it is pretty common in the design industry, or I think in the tech industry in general, or I believe in other industries too. But I also have like a little book that talks about imposter syndrome. I haven't finished it, but I will take note of that. So I think we're good with the icebreaker, Manija. We can proceed to the first set of questions.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you guys for answering. So for the first set of questions, we'll just be getting to know the mentors a bit more with specific questions. And just to keep in mind, when there's names on the questions, we will just start off the question to that certain mentor. But for the mentors, feel free to pop in when you'd like. Okay, so the first question, we can go to the first. Next slide. Okay. So for Wei, we can start off with Wei. How did you get to the current position you are in now? Is this where you thought you would end up?
Yeah, so how did I get to my current position? So I was studying industrial design at school, and close to graduation, I feel like the digital world just started booming, and I always very interested in the digital media and the digital aspects of the product. So that's when I start creating my portfolio and then start throwing my resume and portfolio to over 100 plus of the job. It's really hard because at that time there's no bootcamp, there's no a lot of online resources talking about what the UX design is. So I basically threw all my work into my portfolio. Sometimes I got an interview, people ask, what kind of role are you actually looking for? Are you looking for UX design or looking for industrial design? So my first very job actually is through the school portfolio review, more like career fair. There's alumni who own the agency. He sees potential on my portfolio, so he loved to hire me as intern. So that's when I start learning a lot of the real world, the UX skills in the agency. And in the agency, I got a chance to work on different kind of problem areas with different kind of company. And also, I feel agency is a great place to work with a lot of talented designer to know the trend. Then after a few years, I start want to work as in-house designer, so I can work more closely with different kind of cross-functional people. That's why I started moving to be an in-house designer. Then I move into a startup world for a few years, and I absolutely love it. In the startup, I can create a big impact, and I can know the businesses very well. Feel free to interrupt me if I take too long for this question. And then after a few years in startup, I feel like I'm already in the comfort zone. I don't. I feel like eventually my career goal might be build my own design team or my grow the design team. So I feel maybe the natural next step is go to an even bigger company to see how huge companies scale the design or scale the design team. That's where I end up with my current job at Google. Is this where I thought I would end up with? I don't think this is where thought I would end up with 8 years ago. But I think as my career progress, I can see my next step clearly, more clearly. Of course, not transparently clear, but it will become easier and easier compared to my early career. I have no idea where I will end up with.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for sharing, Wei. It's cool that you mentioned that you went as an in-house designer, then you also had experience with startups. I think that's what's cool with like design world, how you have all the options in different industries or the sizes of the companies depending on what you'd like. So thank you for that. And if Chris and Trixie wants to just like mention quickly how they get to where they are, please feel free to pop in right now if you'd like. Okay.
Sure. When I also didn't know that I would end up in interaction design when I started. In fact, my original degree in school was in manufacturing engineering. So I was doing mostly, I was planning to go into the medical field, and I was studying for, prosthetics and all that stuff. But then I encountered ergonomics as one of my classes. And that led me to an interest in industrial design. And so I went into the program, the only design program in my new school that I thought was going to be about industrial design. And then that led me to other exposures for, like in classes, which was like graphic design and all that stuff. And finally ended up in an internship for interaction design, which like up until that point, I didn't know what interaction design was. I basically went in as a designer for icons, as a visual designer intern. And then that's, on the job is where I learned what interaction design was, tried to understand what that meant in the company that I was in. And then, that's sort of like when I realized that was what I was passionate about. And so if you ask me even like, 8-10 years ago, if I would ever think that I'd be a product designer, like somebody designing apps, I would probably have said no. I wouldn't have known.
Okay, thank you so much. And Chris, did you want to add something quickly?
Sure. I think in a nutshell, no, this is not where I thought I would end up. I think that's sort of the beauty of being a designer. I think the journeys are very organic, very different. People come from all walks of life. I was an international studies major. I thought I wanted to work for the State Department, be some sort of diplomatic person, like in foreign service. Um, Quickly discovered that was not really my jam, to each their own, but it was not something that I wanted to do. Um, yeah, I started as a graphic designer, sort of similar to some other folks, but started to dip into the user experience space. I enjoyed chewing on meaty problems. That's something that was really interesting to me, and so I just kind of pulled that thread and went where it took me. I didn't really know where it was going until I was there a lot of the time. So I think year over year, I don't think I had any expectations. I think my expectation was I should just say yes to as many things as possible and learn, like be a sponge. Yeah, I think that's all I want to say
Yeah.
about that.
Thank you for that statement about no expectations. I think from like in the design industry too, especially for the junior designers when we're just starting to look for opportunities, we have to be open-minded about potential opportunities and such. So thank you for that. So we can go to the next slide. This next question is for Trixie. What do you like the most about being a product designer?
What I love most about being a product designer is the fascination of an idea that's just in my head coming to life and people using it. I think I've always been um, like amazed at how, you're presented with a problem statement on paper, maybe not even a statement, they just tell you what the problem is, and then you mull over a couple of different solutions, you figure out what your point of view is on that solution, and then it gets built and then it gets out into the world and people start using it. And I remember when I was starting out, that sounded like such a tall order. There was a lot of pressure to um, to get it right. But then I think as you move into your career, as I moved into my career, I realized that you don't have to get it right the first time. But I think just the the fact that it is out in the world and you thought of that and you solved for that problem and you understand how much it took to actually solve that and get people to use it, that to me is such a rewarding experience as a product designer. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think it is really like achieving to um know if like a product or a feature that you propose will be used by other users. As a junior designer myself, I'm still looking forward for that moment, but thank you for sharing, Trixie. For Wei and Chris, would you like to add in something for that? What do you like most about being a product designer?
Yeah, I think from my side, I think it's just being a product designer, you got to solve different kind of problems, especially when you are in an early career. You can try different things. If you're interested in healthcare, you can work solving the problem in healthcare, fintech, enterprise, consumer, all these kind of problems. You can try it. And I think another thing is I like being a product designer a lot. Is just you you can use the digital solution as a means to solve the real world problems, like what you just mentioned in a scale. So just by thinking about this, I think it's a super cool things as a product designer.
Thank you for that. Chris, gonna add something?
Sure. I think what sticks out, what brings me enjoyment about being a designer is fostering a connection with the people that we're serving. I think I'm a very service-oriented person. I view design as creating things that help people do things, that make their lives easier, that help them do things faster. So I think what I do enjoy the problem-solving part, but I think as a relationship-driven person, I appreciate being the person whose job it is to represent people, to represent the people that we're serving on the team. So being the voice for the user in meetings, we're trying to decide what we're going to build, like what problems should we bite off. Having so like being that person that gets the research together and like has that point of view and is speaking on behalf of those folks. That gives me a lot of energy in my job.
Okay, thank you for that. So I think we'll go to the next slide. Will be the final question for getting to know the mentors. So I'll start off for Chris. From the time you entered your first UX product designer job until now, what would you say are the important skill sets you've learned in real life work that might not really be taught in school or other educational courses?
Yeah. So what I think is covered a lot in these courses is like the tactical side of design. So like producing specific things, like whatever affinity diagrams or prototypes, and like learning how to use Figma, running user research, that type of stuff. I think that is all good and valuable stuff. But what I do think is missing and very important is the relationship building part of design. I think design relies a lot on cross-functional partnership between people who are specialists in their crafts. Like we are design specialists, but we have different partners on our cross-functional teams in products, content strategy, research, all these different areas that we will never be masters in. And we sort of trust these folks to be masters in their respective domains. So something that I think is important is sort of a mindset and also some applied tactics to creating these relationships with people in a way that empowers everyone to bring their crafts to the table to just create great things. So long story long, the first part is understanding that these relationships are critical to making good things. Like you cannot build these things alone. You have to build these things in tandem with your other craft specialists. You need to work with them. So first is knowing that thing that is needed. And another is creating your own art as a designer, sort of designing that process to make sure that these folks are involved in your own design process in a way that you can get the most out of their expertise, the same way the team is getting the most out of your expertise.
Thank you for that detailed answer, Chris. That's really insightful on mentioning the cross-functional and trust when working with other members in the teams. So if Wei and Trixie wants to add something, please feel free to pop in now if you'd like.
I'll just plus one on what Chris said about relationship building, especially I feel like when I progress on my career, relationship building it becomes more and more crucial. And also, I think as a designer, we have our advantage over other cross-functional partners. We are very good at visual storytelling, and we can really leverage this kind of skill into the collaboration with the PM, Eng, sales, legal, all this kind of thing, but just showcase how the things work visually, because I think most of designer as a visual thinker, we can make a lot of not clear conversation very clear on the table, then kind of align with different people. I just want plus one on that.
Yeah, and I would echo both of their responses. I think one observation I've had in my career is that the more you go up the ladder, the less product design becomes about production, and it becomes more about getting buy-in. And so in order to get your stuff done, you need to be able to connect with those people that you are working with. You need to be able to demonstrate that you're listening and that you are taking their expertise into account, and that you're valuing those and bringing that into your design.
Thank you so much, Trixie, and to the other mentors too. So I think we'll go for the next set of questions. I'll pass it over to Tunisia.
Thank you. All right, so we're just going to go into our next category of questions now. So these are questions that are going to make you kind of reflect back, time travel, and just ask yourself, what if? So starting off with Wei, this question is for you. If you could go back in time, what would you have done differently to surpass the challenges you have faced to reach where you are at right now? So take it away.
Yeah, if I could go back time, I would definitely ask more help for the people can give me career advice, job seeking advice, because I think in my earlier career, I have so many trial and error. I initially, when I'm looking for a job, I don't know any techniques or strategy to look for a job. I just apply any kind of job post pop out in the job board. So if I could go back time, I think I should just, I wish there is the ADP list so I can find a mentor, so get their feedback. It can really help a lot in the speed up my career. Yeah.
No, of course, yeah, just big word, help, just asking for help, and what you're doing now is giving help. So love how it's full circle now. All right, so I do have a question for all three of our mentors. I will be asking Trixie first, followed by Chris and then Wei. And this question revolves around the various kinds of industries a designer can land in. So narrowing down industries, choosing what you think you'd like, it is quite a doozy. So mentors, if you weren't in the current role that you're in right now, be it grocery tech, social media, e-commerce, etc., what other industry would you have explored in this field? So if there are a few industries that immediately come to your mind, how did you figure out what you liked?
I think for myself, so as I mentioned earlier, I was exploring more like the graphic, visual design aspect of design. And so I would have probably explored like marketing, advertising. I think one of the main reasons why I didn't end up exploring that is because my internship landed me in a software company. And so when I tried my hand at visual design there, I realized very early on that there were other people who were better at it than I was. And then, being exposed to the interaction designers that were in the team that I was interning at, I started learning a lot more about interaction design, and I was really fascinated by the storytelling aspect of it. And so, I quickly abandoned my visual design dreams and went straight into interaction.
Thanks, Trixie. And then Chris, I'll have you say a couple words.
Yeah, happy to share. I guess I'm probably not the best person to ask this question to, because I think I didn't really pay a lot of attention to what industries I wanted to work in necessarily. I was focused more on what is the design team like, what is the design culture like, and less focused on the subject matter area. So like I've worked in like the personal travel space. I've worked in the personal finance space. I'm now working at a social media company. These are all vastly different areas. And in some ways, I think it's nice to have an open mind about the industry, especially as a junior designer, and just go where you think you can learn something. Now that I'm, and build your experience, like learn stuff. I think now that I'm a little bit farther along in my career, I've started to challenge that a bit more, where I'm thinking about what are the things that I'm really interested in? Like, what are some product areas that I think are really neat? Like, what are products I use in my life that I value? And what would it be like to work in service of those products? I am starting to think about that a little bit, but I still think my focus is predominantly less on the industry and more on what are the people building the things like? Am I going to like working with them? Am I going to learn from them? Are they like humble, smart people? I don't really do well in environments where there are big egos. So I try to think about if I might be in an environment where that's a thing.
Thanks, Chris. Just love hearing like the varying like lenses that that other designers have on this topic. And Wei, your words on this question?
Yeah, I also want to plus one on what Chris said. I think just to be open, you never know what you don't know until you actually try it out. Yeah, and I think I feel for me, I think it's also less about the industry, but more about what kind of problem I want to solve. Because even maybe you end up with consumer industry or social media industry, you may explore something else within that industry. You can get to work on some of the consumer part of it in the enterprise software, or you can touch on some of the messaging tools in the enterprise world. So you never know whether you will get to of your next try. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I think you said it quite well. Just do it. So with time in mind, we'll move on to the next section of questions that we have had. And Melanie?
Yep, thank you, Manija. So the next set of questions is just asking about choosing a current career path. So let's go to the next slide. So this is for all of the mentors, whoever wants to start. How important do you think it is to become an interdisciplinary designer in the UX product design field?
I'm happy to kick this one off. I think I alluded to this earlier. I think designers come in many shapes and sizes. So in some ways, I think designers are already interdisciplinary. So they like we have all of these different skills. In my mentorship meetings, I try to explain what I think these different categories are. But I see leadership, strategy, research, visual design acumen, technical skill like HTML, CSS, and prototyping as all different facets of what being a designer is comprised of. And I think I encourage folks and myself to look inward and think about where you stand in all of these different categories, from I'm a total novice to I could write a book about this thing and people would buy it. Like just having an honest conversation about where you stand in all these categories and understanding what your superpowers are. Usually there's one or two things that stand out, like, oh, I really like research. I love talking to people. Or I really love building things. I love prototyping. But dealing with product partners is like kind of stressful and like takes a lot of energy away. So having those conversations helps you figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are. And then from there, you can think about, well, do I want to double down on my superpowers or do I want to round out my weaknesses? And that totally depends on the person. So I wouldn't say one way or the other. But I think we are all interdisciplinarians to some extent. So where you go from there is kind of up to you.
Thank you for that, Chris. For Trixie and Wei, any additional comments?
Yeah, for me, I guess my interpretation of interdisciplinary is maybe something that would be outside of design. So say if you are interested in things like finance or health or I don't know. I'm blanking out right now. E-commerce, things like that. And I think that's extremely necessary to have other interests as designers. First and foremost, we are creatives, right? And second, design is not really an exact science. It's not like medicine or accounting where you learn a skill and that's really all you do, right? Design is a synthesis of a lot of different things. And when we create solutions for problems, it really depends on our point of view on how we are going to solve for that, right? So even if you give me and Chris and Wei the same problem to solve, we're all going to come up with different types of solutions because of our different points of view. And a lot of that is influenced by what we know, what we are interested, what we are exposed to, the stuff that we do outside of work. Um, and so I think it's necessary for us to be as designers to be exposed to all of those different things and keep tab of them, um, because that in turn influences our opinions on the solutions that we create.
Thank you, Trixie. For Wei, any additional comments for you?
I think Chris and Trixie already framed this question super well. I think only maybe just one thing to add is, um, I think you don't need to be master of all the other related discipline, but it's nice to know that discipline so you can make sure you can speak that language, or you can build empathy for other discipline you are working with. So you can know what's the motivation, the reasoning from their side. So it's easier to communicate and help the team reach alignment. Also, I think this is the one of the cornerstone of the relationship building we touched on earlier.
Okay, thank you. So in consideration of time, I will just have to ask the last question in this section, and then I will pass it over to Manesia to share the Q&A questions that have been asked. So for the last question, I believe, yeah, for Trixie, if any, how has mentorship impacted your career journey so far, whether it was having your personal mentor or mentoring other designers?
Yeah, for sure. I can give a response for both sides. So I think when I was starting out in my career, albeit I didn't really have like one single mentor, or I wasn't part of like any type of formal mentorship program, but I did find mentors in the people that I looked up to in the companies that I was part of. And I think what the biggest impact of that for me was being able to personify what a good designer was and who I wanted to be like, right? It's not that I would idolize them or I would just do exactly as they say, but it gave me an idea of what I wanted to work towards. Um, and then they also gave me a lot of space to speak my mind without being patronized, without sounding like I was just starting out and I didn't know anything. So I really appreciated that. And I think that really built my confidence to move up, in my own way. And then in terms of mentoring other designers, so as I mentioned earlier, right, like the more that you move up the career ladder, the less it becomes about designing the things and actually building relationships. And, Chris doubled down on this a lot today. And so I think mentoring other designers sort of gives me that practice to listen to people, to empathize with people, to foster an environment that was encouraging, that was about learning. And so, it wasn't just about paying it forward to the other designers, but interestingly enough, mentorship programs and all these exercises that we do, it doesn't just benefit the mentee, it actually benefits the mentor also, because it becomes like a stepping stone for things like being a manager or having a team, a full-on team under you.
Anything to add, Chris or Wei?
I think Trixie kind of nailed it. But I guess for me personally, I did not really have a mentor like this early in my career, and I think Wei alluded to this. There's just a ton of trial and error, and looking back, it would have been awesome to have a mentor to help have less trial and error and like have some applied experience that they could learn from. So I wish that I had more of that. So I try to be that person for other people. And Trixie, you called out something really eloquently, that this work, like being on ADP list, is building a skill set for like building this like building people up skill set, bringing like, and I think that's super valuable and awesome, and like it gives me a lot of joy. But I think folks maybe don't think about it like it's almost viewed as like a community service type thing, but like it's really, I mean, it in some ways it is, but it's also like building. It's a great way to build a new skill set that is really relevant later in the ladder. So well put, Trixie.
Okay, thank you for that. If what for Wei? Anything to add?
I don't have anything to add. The already covered pretty much everything.
Okay, thank you. So we actually have one more for this section. So the same thing for Trixie. What is one piece of advice you can't Google? I think it's for Chris and Wei too, if you'd like.
My one piece of advice, if I can boil, there's a lot, but I can boil it down to one, which is um, self-awareness will bring you very, very far on your career. So I would say that, you always try to build in time to reflect and to pause on where you are, right? So check in with where you're at. What have you learned so far? What are you good at this point? Um, how you're, like if you're thinking about money, like how much are you worth in the industry? Maybe it's worth like having conversations with recruiters, even if you have no intention of doing an interview with them, things like that. Figuring out your leverage in a room so that where to place yourself, how to navigate the politics in the workplace. Knowing yourself is such a fundamental skill in this industry, I think. And the more that you are secure about who you are as a person and as a designer, I think that basically is all you need to battle imposter syndrome, even. As Chris mentioned, it never goes away. It really doesn't. And knowing yourself is probably the best thing that you can have under your belt, or the best skill that you can have to battle that.
Thank you for that. Chris, Wei, one piece of advice.
I can go. I think one thing is just get your hands dirty. Just do it and have a leap of faith. Because sometimes I feel I used to spend so much time to think about, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I do this? Or should I not do this? Especially when it comes to the work, there's some challenge. Should I take this role, or should I start this initiative, or should I do this presentation? I think I probably will more regret of not doing it than doing it. And I don't think I will have the idea about what the result is, but I don't think I will regret on actually doing it. So instead of keep having hesitation and then Google it whether I should do it or not do it, maybe the better idea, just try it out, get your hands dirty.
Hey, thank you so much, Wei. You're gonna add something, Chris?
Bias towards action is definitely a big one. Just do the thing. I'm a chronic overthinker, and I think a tactic that has helped me that you can probably Google but it's something that I didn't really start doing really until a year and a half ago. Time boxing is amazing for the overthinker. Oh my God. Like just get like putting it on the calendar, giving yourself an hour to do a thing. Like that usually takes you less time than you think to just try it. And time boxing yourself forces you to try it. So that tactic in particular has been very helpful for me as a chronic overthinker, as it forces me to do things and think less. And I think that's been a very liberating tactic for me personally.
Yeah, thank you so much, mentors. So we'll go straight to like the live Q&A. May only have to ask 2 questions, but for the rest of the questions listed, we will keep in mind of possibly put in a document and ask the mentors later on if they could answer some of the questions in their own time. So I think the first one will go to the top left. What is a popular UX design advice that you disagree with? So this is pretty interesting when I saw this. Trixie, Chris, Sway.
I love how they all just like thinking.
I think I have an idea. Something that I see a lot recently is there's a debate about sort of the case study formats right now that's sort of been beaten to death, particularly for junior folks. Like what I mean by that is when you're trying to build this storytelling skill when you're presenting your work, I think the formula of what is the problem you're trying to solve, who are you solving it for, where's your supporting research, what are the things you tried, what did you learn, that formula is something that I've seen challenged a lot recently, like on LinkedIn and Twitter or whatever. A lot of the discourse I see around it is that this formula is bad. That is the feedback that I'm seeing. I wouldn't say that I completely disagree. I think it could be putting your story in a box. So I guess in that respect, I agree. But on the other hand, I think that if you're just learning about building your storytelling skill, it's a good start to get you thinking about creating your narrative for your story. And I think Trixie and Wei definitely chime in, but I think over time, that is definitely where I started with my case studies. But now when I present my work, I find that it's very different. But it's my own particular spice blend of storytelling that has evolved over time. But it started with this template. So I think to say that this template is a bad thing, I don't really agree with that. I view it more as a starting point for your own perspective on storytelling as a designer. And you as a designer build that over time as you do more work and tell the story more and more.
Sounds good. For Trixie Wei, I think Wei's, you have something to say, Wei?
I have one. I'm not sure this is a popular UX design advice out there, but I do see a lot of designers, especially when they first start looking for a job, the first thing they want to do is the website. They just want to create a personal website. I don't disagree with creating a personal website. And sometimes creating personal websites is fun, especially you can treat it as a design project to create your own branding. But if the goal is to find a job, so I want to challenge that whether creating a website is the most efficient thing to do to find a job. Maybe you don't need to create a website to put 10 different projects there, spend 2 months to create a website. What you can do, just like what Chris said, create a good narrative to tell the story for 2 nice projects in the slides. So you can share with the recruiter with the slides. No one will say a slide is not as good as a website. I think instead slide is probably better format to tell a story than an open-ended website. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So, do you have anything to add, Trixie, or you're good?
No, I would just +1 both of their responses.
Okay, thank you so much. And based on the chat, yes, this will be recorded. And if I believe it was Abdul who wanted to jump in, if you're still here, do you want to ask your question by any chance? If you're still here.
Hi guys. It wasn't particularly a question. I think it was my perspective to the question of what if you could have what could have been different if you went back in time. So obviously, the speakers here mentioned their perspectives, but when Shen was talking about his perspective, right? He had to do a lot of trial and error. He wish he had a mentor like this or session like these, to jump on. But I strongly believe that those trial and errors make you who you are. True, it would have been easy, but it's not just the way you think or who you are. It's those little moments uh, actually make up who you are. So I just wanted to point that out.
Okay, thank you, Abdul.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think, oh, go ahead.
I just completely agree that I think trial and error and getting your hands dirty is very crucial in order to grow, just like you building a muscle. It's always nice to get nice feedback about what's the right exercise to do. But at the end of the day, if you don't do the exercise and do the exercise, choose the exercise, the diet plan right for you, you will never gain the muscle or physique you want. So
That is
yeah,
so
uh,
true.
yeah.
Yeah. And
Looking
also,
forward to
even if you go on a particular track, right, following the advice, attending these sessions, uh, down the line, you feel like you've been narrowed into. So it's just that the sense of happiness won't be there at the end. Again, you'll be asking these kind of questions. What if this could have been different? So, yeah, just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So we're at 6:01 p.m. Central Time here. So as what I mentioned on the chat, on the screen, there are the QR codes for the mentors. If you're considering to book a mentor session with them, if you'd like to learn more about their experiences, please do so on their profiles or also connect with them on LinkedIn if you'd like. But make sure to send a personalized invite always to let them know that you streamed, you went to this event, since it's really helpful. To send a personalized invite. That's what I learned when I started networking, to send a personalized invite, just to make sure that you're interested to really get to know them or network with them, to have value in the networking relationship. So I think we're all good. Do you want to add anything, Manisha?
No, just thank you for everybody that was here today. Sorry if we couldn't get to your question. A way to get it answered, like how we mentioned, is booking a one-on-one mentorship session with these mentors. So hopefully you can get those questions answered and more. So thank you everyone for your time, and thank you for our mentors for your time and like golden nuggets of wisdom today as well.
Thank you. I hope you all have a good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.